there. Welcome to a higher dimension. I'm Gloria Danvers from Gloria Danvers Hypnosis in Orlando, Florida, and I'm your host for a higher dimension. As a hypnotherapist, I work with everyday people who are having extraordinary experiences in the fascinating world of past life regression, therapeutic hypnosis, psychic abilities, spiritual awakenings, and paranormal encounters. Every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., join me and my guests as we explore their powerful stories and extraordinary journeys together. And sometimes it's just you and me. Solo episodes where I dive deep into metaphysical insights, spiritual concepts, and mind-expanding ideas that I think you'll find both useful and fascinating. Not only will you hear incredible stories, but we'll talk about what comes next. What happens after these life-shifting moments? How do they change you? Who are you now? What truths have you uncovered? We'll explore big questions through deep, eye-opening conversations that you don't want to miss. If you're interested in working with me and having your own transformational hypnosis experience, you can reach me at gloriadanvershypnosis.com. If you're here, chances are you're ready for something different, ready to explore yourself in the higher realms. So shoot me an email or book a free consultation. Maybe it's time for you to shake up what you think you know about the world, about yourself, who you've been, who your friends really are, and where you're headed. You can catch a higher dimension on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Podchaser, Spotify, YouTube, and iHeart.com. But right now, let's sit back, relax, and uncover the hidden depths of the human experience right here on a higher dimension. Hey everyone, it's Gloria from Gloria Danvers Hypnosis in Orlando, Florida, and I'm your host for a higher dimension. Today, I'm pulling something special from my own personal vault. As I mentioned when I started this podcast, I've had many regressions, both spontaneous and guided. This was one of the reasons that I became a past life regressionist. I wanted other people to have the experiences that I was having because I believe that it causes the soul to expand. And I also do believe that it can help a person understand the life that they're living now. And when you understand the life that you are living now, it gives you a certain amount of power over that life. Today, the regression that I'm sharing was a guided regression. Now, do you know when you go to hypnosis school that we all hypnotize each other? That's how we gain our skills, and it's actually pretty cool. And then there comes a point when you're studying past life regression, and this is what you're doing with the other people in your class. So I was in class with my classmates one day, and it was my turn to be regressed. And I sent the intention. As you know, we do set the intention for where we want to go. You can call it a direction, a destination, or a vibration. I set the intention to go back to the lifetime that was affecting me most in this lifetime. When you can't think of anything else, that's probably the best thing to set the intention for. We went through the induction, which is that long part of hypnotic suggestion in which you are lifted out of your body and in spirit. You are taken back to inhabit the body or bodies that you inhabited before, according to your intention. As I opened up into my first scene, as everything became clear, I found that I was sitting in a garden. This beautiful garden with orange trees and, oh my gosh, flowers and plants and birds. I was sitting in a chair with women around me on low benches. My classmate, acting as the regressionist, asked me to look at my feet, and that's a classic first step. And I saw that I was wearing these beautifully embroidered slippers. I still remember what they look like, and this has been many years ago. I felt my arms, I touched my body, and I knew that I was a young woman, probably in my 20s. I remember looking around at all that was before me and around me. The beautifully manicured gardens, the orange trees in flower. In the distance, I could see hills and farmland dotted with trees. You know, those trees that look like Italian pines? I think that's what they're called. They're tall and spiky. And I had a real feeling of satisfaction, of knowing that this was all mine. As far as I could see, I had a sense of ownership that made me feel very complacent. I had the sense that I was in pre-Renaissance Italy. Certainly that I was somewhere warm and beautiful. And I wore simple but expensive flowing robes and a dress. And the women around me were there to amuse me. Among the women was a young man, a minstrel who played the mandolin. He played light and beautiful songs of love and ladies and lords and chivalry. But I knew that some of those songs were meant for me. That particular day, he was playing a beautiful song that he had written for me. And I rewarded him with the blue feather for his cap, as blue was my color. It was all very peaceful and happy and idyllic, until the man I knew as my husband came into the garden, and he was angry. Angry with me and angry with the minstrel. He ordered us both into a small room in our villa, and immediately began accusing me of encouraging the minstrel and sharing my favors with him. Of course, we all know what favors were back then. And I was crying. I got down on my knees, begging my husband not to hurt the minstrel, swearing that we had done nothing and that he was innocent. He was sent off, thankfully, with his life. And my last view of him was him riding his horse away from our villa. I could still see the blue feather in his cap. As a side note, that minstrel played a big part in many of my other past lives, but that story is for another day. My husband was not appeased. On the contrary, he was angrier than before. He began berating me, yelling that I was barren, that I had brought nothing to this marriage, and that he was cursed by God for ever marrying me. I ran into our chapel, hoping that he would not attack me in a house of God. He grew so angry that he grabbed me by the throat and began to strangle me. And only the intercession of our house priest kept him from killing me. After that, I was confined to my room and was to have no food and no drink. I sat there all day wondering what would happen, wondering what he would do, wondering what would happen to me. That evening, my husband came to my room and demanded that I dress in my finest, most beautiful dress and all the jewels that I could fit on myself, because he was having a banquet and there would be many important nobles there. I couldn't believe that he wanted me there, but I went. It's my understanding that at that time, in this place, as was showed to me in the regression, that no one at the table was allowed to eat until the Lord served himself and his lady. I sat at the table next to him, dressed in my finery that showed my status as the lady of the manor, with my bruised throat. And I watched him cut pieces of meat and bread for himself. But instead of giving anything to me, he threw my portion to the dogs under the table. He was calling for everyone to eat and drink and be merry, and generously shared his food with everyone at the table, even the serving people. Everyone except me. I was allowed nothing. So I sat at this table in all my beautiful clothes and jewels, with no food on my empty plate, being ignored, not being able to eat. It was a deliberate act of humiliation. And I remember holding back my tears as I sat there on what seemed to be the longest night of my life. After the banquet, I was sent back to my room and the door was locked behind me. When you're having a regression and you and your regressionist have explored thoroughly one part of the regression, we then move the scene along. So next morning, I was awakened very early by my maid and told to come down to the courtyard. There was my husband and a priest with 2 horses. My husband brusquely told me that I was going with the priest, that I protested, saying I had no clothes. He said, "You will not need them where you are going." He handed the priest a pouch. I think it was probably full of money. And then we left. I tried to ask the priest what was going on, and I got no answer. We eventually came to a place that was a very large building, like a church. And he left me there in the care of the women who all had on long robes. They took me into a room and cut all my hair off, made me take my clothes off, and gave me just a plain brown robe to wear. I kept asking, "Why am I here?" And no one answered me. I was sent to a common room, and there were other women there in the same clothes that I was in. In my regression, I remember I kept trying to puzzle it out until, with a laugh, the woman who was regressing me said, "Gloria, you're in a convent." Not being Catholic or religious, that did not occur to me until then. Somehow, I had managed to keep my little Bible with me, a book of hours that I treasured. I had it on a chain around my waist, and it went with me to that place. And yes, I had been sent away, discarded for not bearing children. And I heard later on that my husband had remarried. The rest of my days were full of prayer, and they were always the same. I had no identity. I didn't choose to be there. I couldn't argue. All I could do was what I was told. I was told when to eat, what to eat, when to get up, when to go to bed, and when to pray, which seemed to be all the time. I don't know how long I lived there. Every day it was exactly like the day before, but I don't think it was very long. I eventually became sick, and I saw myself lying on some type of straw bed, alone, untended. In my last hours, someone came and took my book, and it was my only treasure. I felt for it in my hands and it wasn't there. My last thought in that life was that I needed my book. I needed my Bible. And then I was gone, and back in the classroom with the woman who was regressing me and with my fellow students. I was fortunate that she took a lot of notes, and these are what I had to refer to when I was writing this out today. So the question always is, after the regression, how did that lifetime affect me in this lifetime? I have never let a man tell me what to do. Even though I have been married and I've been in love, I've always done exactly what I wanted to do. In this lifetime, I did have children, but I did not stay tethered to a man who was not right for me. In this lifetime, I've had nothing to do with the church in any way. And in fact, I've always looked at the church as a form of control for women. After that lifetime, I know why. I've been with men in this life that have tried to control the food that I ate. And I had to deal with that as well and tell myself that I could eat what I wanted, when I wanted, and it was nobody's business but my own. That lifetime of having no choices set me up for a lifetime of having many choices, if only I was brave enough to take them on. And yes, all my life, I have been brave enough to take them on. I recognize the man who was my husband as the father of my children in this lifetime now. And I like to think that we have both completed our karmic cycle together. And I'm happy that I didn't follow the same path of giving my power up. Back then, I didn't have a choice. In this lifetime, I do. The takeaway is that it's important for you to know that you always have a choice. That sometimes your current life circumstances are set up for you to break the mold. They are set up for you to see what is wrong, to notice the pattern, and for you to take the courage up to set them right. Not for other people, but for yourself. And this story is only one of the many stories that I have from the archives of my past lives. As spirit beings, we never end. And a past life regression is always proof of that. I hope you enjoyed my story. And some of those parts may be familiar to you in your own life. If my regression story resonated with you, please feel free to pass it on to whomever you think might be interested. And thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for spending this time with me. And I want you to know that these aren't just my stories. They're part of a larger tapestry, a dance that we're all part of. What is illuminating to one can be illuminating to all. And that's why I share. Because maybe, just maybe, one of these stories is also your story. And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope that I've managed to pique your interest, raise your curiosity, give you something to think about, teach you something that you didn't know before, or send you down a major rabbit hole. If you're curious about what I do, shoot me an email. Go on to my website, gloriadanvershypnosis.com, and book a free consultation. Let's discover something about you that you didn't know. I'll be back next week, and until then, stay curious. Stay open to all the things that come in for you through higher dimensions.